Welcome in, everybody. We're just going to give it about 1 more minute for a few more people to join us, and then we're going to get started, okay? Okay, it is now 2:02. We are going to get started. Welcome everybody to the first of what is a 2-part webinar series. We're branding as Rate Case Radar with Adam Kester, our product director at BCC Software. My name is Brandon Kellaway. I am marketing lead here at BCC Software, and we are moderating this webinar together to bring it to all of you. We have a few items that we're going to talk about, but before we get into it, I just want to announce for everybody here on the webinar that if you have not heard of our Information Exchange 2026 conference coming up this August, we are doing things a little bit differently this year. This is a 2-part Information Exchange conference, both virtual and live. The virtual conference is the first week of August, and it comprises 16 different sessions from August 4th through August 7th. And they're really focused on product deep dives. So if that's something that you are very passionate about, please check out the link at the bottom of the slide and inquire for more information or sign up for a ticket. And then if you are interested in our live conference, it'll be the week after, August 11th through August 13th. And it's 2.5 solid, jam-packed days of networking and information exchange sessions going on. So very exciting. The live conference is going to be in downtown Nashville. The virtual conference sessions are going to be hosted by us, moderated by myself. And we're going to bring in all kinds of different BCC Software individuals to help co-present all the different subjects we have for you. So please take a look at the link that we have on this slide. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out to us there. Some housekeeping items. We have a couple hundred people with us now. We have about 400 people who've registered for this webinar, over 400 people who've registered for today. So I just want to remind everybody that part 2 of this series is on June 18th. That's also a Thursday. It'll be at the exact same time. If you haven't seen it already, you can sign up at the exact same landing page that the first webinar was registration was on as well. We'll be sending out more communications about that as the time comes closer, but we are also going to be sending out some marketing materials in advance of that June 18th Rate Case Radar webinar, which will have some sort of like summary information about all the details that are coming to be implemented in July. This is a very big rate case, as most of us know already. This webinar is being recorded. We're going to do our best to get the recording out to all attendees and all registrants. And we're also going to push a lot of this information out there on LinkedIn and on our website. So keep a lookout for all of those videos. And then just a little housekeeping item, all attendees are muted with your cameras off. Please utilize our chat and Q&A section. We have Kendra Van Gundy and Rosine Gray with us as well from our customer support team. And we're going to do our best to be monitoring the chat for questions. We do have a dedicated live Q&A session at the end of this segment. So be sure to put your questions in there as we go. and there'll be more information as at the very end where we're going to be addressing all those direct questions for you. I'm going to turn it over to Adam Kester, our product director, and he's going to be taking us through the rest of our webinar. Adam,
All right.
take it away.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, and first of all, welcome everybody. This is a very large rate case, like Brandon mentioned. It's probably the largest one in my tenure in the industry, going back at least 10 years here. So there's a lot going on. We're going to try to give you the very highest level so that you can start in, see what is going to be impactful to you, give you some resources to go do some more research there, and then also have that follow-up session, like Brandon mentioned, to make sure that we get as many of your questions answered prior to these go live days that we're going to be talking about. Just to walk you through what we're going to be covering today, I've broken out the major bulk of the changes into 3 sections here. I thought that was a little bit more applicable to how people are actually doing mail today. We've got the changes that'll be impacting just about everything across the board, from letters, flats, and parcels. We've got a section that'll cover just the flat changes and where those are falling in, just some parcel changes, and then some additional cleanup things at the end. We've got some changes that are coming and were filed with this rate case, and we can give you a sneak peek into what those will be looking like later in the year. And then we have a list of additional changes that are going in here that are not nearly as large in terms of the change that is coming, but they're definitely worth noting. And especially if there's things in that list that you need to dive into more, it'd be good to, we can put that in the chat, and either we can cover that today in our Q&A, or we can make sure we hit it in our part 2 of this. And then, like Brandon mentioned, the live Q&A to close everything out. All right. As always with these rate cases, we have a rough timeline based on what the post office has communicated out to us. The major date that we always get are the Postal One go live date and the rate case implementation date. The rate case implementation date is when you see those rates actually go into effect, and that'll be on July 12th. The Postal One go live date, where you can start submitting mail for after that date and it'll catch everything in the system the way that it's supposed to, is on June 28th. That's always 2 weeks prior to that implementation date. And as always, our normal disclaimer here, like we are moving with these changes as closely as we can. We're working very closely with the post office to make sure that we're getting all the correct information. We're reading all their documentation, but things can change. Everything in here has not yet been fully approved by the Postal Regulatory Commission. So make sure that you're paying attention to the channels from BCC, the channels from the post office, anywhere else you get your postal news, the industry alerts that they send out for updates, changes. We will for sure be keeping an eye on that, communicating those out as we get major changes coming through, if there are any, as well as making sure that anything that we get is communicated out via the next webinar as well. And then we're not going to spend a ton of time on the actual rate impacts, but just to make sure that you're aware of what's coming. The bulk of what we're going to be spending our time on is the structural changes, but the Postal Service does publish these percent changes in here, and they do conglomerate a lot of the percent changes into a single number that they break out by class. First class, marketing, mail, and package services are all set to go up across the board by 4.8%. That doesn't mean any given rate sale is going up 4.8%, but that's the change that the post office was allotted, and they're taking every bit of rate authority that they can. Periodical is set to go up to 6.8% as well, because again, the majority of that product is still not covering its cost completely, so they have a little bit of extra rate authority there. There's a few notable outliers in terms of those percents as well. If you go look at the PRC filing that they've done, marketing mail parcels and marketing mail carrier route pieces are both north of 7%, so keep an eye on those. The within county periodical pieces are getting a pretty large bump as well at 9.3%. Bound printed matter flats has the largest increase, I believe, in the filing at 34%. And then the media mail and library mail is actually dropping 1.7% as well. That's all on the market dominant side. The competitive products are not getting a broad sweeping rate change this time, because that time limited transportation transportation surcharge went into effect on April 26th. They did that to cover their costs with the rising gas prices. That 8% has been in effect since April 26th. Then if you've been doing competitive products, you've already been paying those. The major change that we're getting for the competitive products in terms of a rate increase or adjustment is on Ground Advantage pieces under a pound. They used to be priced out at 4-ounce increments. They're still technically broken apart by 4-ounce increments, but all of those costs are exactly the same at the moment per zone across the board. They're no longer broken out by a 4-ounce piece and an 8-ounce piece, for example. Those will pay the same price under a pound. I do have that link in the at the bottom of the slide there if you want to go check out the individual rate cells for any of these products. If you know you've been in that cell before, you can get a better, more granular sense along the way as well. But make sure you're paying attention to your own mailings because these are just the average across the class. All right, to get into the meat of the content, the major structural change that we'll be seeing this time is on the AADC and ADC network removal. This is a set of network that has been in place for a very long time, well before I was involved in the industry. But over the course of those decades that it's been present, the post office has been moving towards putting the ADC network into sync with the SCF network. They have gotten to a place where they think that that is close enough that they can transition out of ADC and make SCF ubiquitous across the board rather than using a separate set of lists for one class versus another class. Everything will be going to an SCF level as opposed to the ADC or AADC level where it was before. There's a couple of fallout pieces that'll happen along with this that are wrapped into these changes. In addition to eliminating an ADC or AADC sortation or rate level in a given product, anywhere that an SCF level didn't exist already, it will be added into the sortation. And so if you've never sorted to an SCF before in first class, for example, that level will now be there. Really what that means, again, because those networks were already synced up pretty closely, you're just going to be using a different labeling list. The post office will have a few different facilities potentially that go there, but by and large, you shouldn't see major sortation changes as a result of this. The thing that will change if you're looking at postage statements is that what was an ADC rate is not replaced by an SCF rate. It's just going straight into a 3-digit rate. So previously we had 3-digit and 3-digit scheme that we're all getting, or that we're both getting the same rate. And now SCF will join those two and also get a 3-digit rate for anything sorted to those levels. That means there's a little bit less granular control from the post office on how those rates get priced out. But it does change some of where you'll want to be doing a sortation. If some of those levels are optional, you might decide to skip a 3-digit level and go straight to the SCF preparation level, and you'll be able to get that same price. Some of those places in each sortation, you're going to have the 3-digit level is required, so you won't be able to skip that, but make sure you're paying attention to what the software allows because we're following the DMM rules on what's optional and what's not. So it might behoove you to move up into the SCF level for that. In addition, the origin SCF level from the places where it existed before, I believe it was just periodical and first class. Those had some special rules around those pallets that were created at those levels, including being able to put single piece on those origin SCF pallets. Those levels are removed. And so an SCF pallet now is just an SCF pallet. There is an exception if you are still dropping at an origin mail for the origin facility where you're dropping at the SCF level, that there's no minimum on those pieces. They don't want to force you to create something that'll go to the mix level if you're still dropping it off into your origin. But in general, a lot of those rules that came along with those origin SCF pallets are just removed, and it's just an SCF level pallet. And then Brandon, if you go to the next slide, we've got a little example here on the marketing mail automated bundle flats. Again, that's just giving you an example of how those sortations are going to be rated, right? In the current world we're living in, for those automated bundled flats, we've got 5-digit and 5-digit scheme going to the 5-digit rate. We've got 3-digit scheme and 3-digit sortations going to the 3-digit rate. ADC has its own rate, and mixed ADC has its own rate. As we get to July, that ADC rate equivalent is removed completely, and 3-digit scheme, 3-digit presort, and SCF all go to that 3-digit rate. And then we're going to talk about what's happening to mixed very shortly, but that's still got its own rate. All right, So the mixed levels across the board are being consolidated into a single set of rules, right? Previously, we had mixed ADC, origin mixed ADC, mixed NDC in different kind of configurations depending on which class of mail and what type of mail you're doing. Those are now all being moved into a mixed working level. There's not a ton that's changing with the sortation on these, but you will see changes on your labels, for example, or on your pallet placards. The previous way of labeling those have now been all consolidated into a single static line on the label, calling those things mixed working. There's no longer any requirement on those labels as well for what origin facility you're working with to label them to that facility. In addition, if you're doing first class mail and you were separating origin mixed ADC surface mail and mixed ADC air mail based on the labeling list 201, that distinction is being eliminated as well. So everything mixed is going onto a mixed pallet, and whether or not it was on labeling list 201 doesn't matter which pallet you put it on anymore. Basically, that'll be up to the origin facility to sort that mail correctly, and the goal is to just have those things going into those facilities a little bit more cleanly. Residual single piece pallets where those exist today also will be labeled as mixed working, and those will be getting roughly the same kind of labeling as you go. Another major change, and though I know periodical is not going to affect everybody on the call, but it does affect everything across all the shape of mail that we have for the letters, flats, and parcels, is that there's been a major restructure to how periodical pieces are rated. So previously we had what was a bundle and container and a pallet charge. Those made up a major piece of the 3541 postage statement. All of those sections and all of those rules around the bundle charges, the container charges, and the pallet charges have been removed. The Postal Service is doing this in an effort to simplify the rating of periodical. There's still a lot of edge cases and things in periodical, but this moves it into a much more similar to what marketing mail does today for how its pieces are rated and charged. And so you'll see a lot of those similar things if you're also doing marketing mail today coming into periodical mail, either with this rate case or in the future, there'll be more pieces that are coming in as well. For example, one of the major things that will now be in periodical mail that wasn't there before was the SCF pallet discount, which again is in first class and marketing mail, and the direct container discount or the delivery sort container discount, depending on which form you're looking at. Those mean that if you're making a pallet that is at the SCF level or better, you're going to get a discount for every piece on that pallet. And if you're making something that could be drop shipped, or excuse me, that could be cross-docked from the facility where it's entered all the way down to the DDU and nothing has to stop and process that container on the way, you'll get the direct container discount as well. And for periodical mail, this is starting out just in flats. Letters and parcels are not getting that discount just yet. It is a thing that is on the USPS's radar that they're watching for. It's possible that those things come in the future, but we'll keep an eye on when that comes and make sure we inform you when it does or if it does. And now just the changes for flats. One of the major things that's happening here is that marketing mail flats have had their weight limits increased. This is just to align across the board with what the flat sorting machines that the post office employs can actually handle. All flats, no matter what they're sorted to, will be increased to a maximum of 20 ounces. But if you're doing carrier route flats, those have been increased to a maximum of 24 ounces. Again, that's just due to the reality that those flats are not going across the same machines. And so a 24-ounce flat goes, that's a carrier route, goes directly down to the DDU. And so it doesn't have to run across the same machines that have that 20-ounce limit on them. This is mostly done to encourage a lot of the movement. So if you remember back a couple of cycles ago, the post office put a proposal out to the PRC to eliminate bound printed matter. This was originally part of that proposal as well. It was meant to give a home to all of the pieces that are in bound printed matter, a place to go. And so they've kept this around in a way to encourage the movement of those pieces out of bound printed matter if they apply for the marketing mail requirements, but also give a little bit of a rate incentive and cover the complete costs or the complete use case of what BPM flats cover today. BPM's not going away. The PRC ruled against that, but it still does encourage some of that mail to move around to where the post office is looking to put it. Next, we have the elimination of bundling for non-carrier route carrier route marketing mail flats and tubs into flat trays, right? So those are the much bigger than letter trays. They're, I think, 12 inches high or so. They are eliminating bundling in those tubs in order to reduce the amount of work that it requires to be to process those tubs at the facility where they're being used. That means that within that tub, what used to be bundled multiple rates, you can only have one rate in that tub. So if you've got 3-digit mail, it can't be in the same tub as a piece of 5-digit mail and still get the 5-digit rate on those. It's going to be just the single rate. And the exception to that, of course, is that the carrier routes will still be bundled as they are today, and the piece minimum for those tubs is going up, right? So it's no longer based on the bundles, it's based on how many pieces are in that tub to meet that minimum. This is corresponding very closely to what the post office did with first class mail a little while ago as well with those flats and tubs. You've got a 50-piece minimum on those pieces, or to the bottom of the handholds, which constitutes a full tray. The other thing that's worth noting here, if this is just the flat tub, so if you're preparing mail in sacks or bundles on pallets, this is not an impact to what those preparations are doing, but it will start moving that mail through the post office's processing in a little bit quicker rate, fewer touches on these pieces. The bound printed matter flats have been restructured as well. So previously, when you were rating out a bound printed matter flat, you would get the weight of the flat itself or some sample size, figure out what a single flat weighs, multiply that by the pound rate, and then add the piece weight into the price of the flat. And that would be your price per piece. They are changing how that rating structure works today and moving to a single piece rate based on how much the piece weighs. So instead of doing math to get to your answer of how much a piece weighs, you look at the chart that's in front of us here. So if you got a 12 pound piece and you're delivering that piece to the DSCF, you don't have to weigh out the piece specifically. You just need to know that it is less than 12 pounds, but more than 11 pounds, and you're paying $2.40 for that piece. Not a huge change in terms of structure. The software, by and large, will take care of that for you, but it will look different on the postage statement if you're comparing those. There's a bunch of columns that are removed, and especially if you're doing your own math on what these things are coming out to be, make sure you're paying attention to that change as well. And this impacts both the carrier route and the pre-sorted flats. Non-pre-sorted flats were already in this structure with a slightly different weight break structure already built out. All right, and those are the majority of our flats changes, and now we'll talk a bit about parcels. And then just to say it, it's not that there's no letter changes in here, but the flats and parcel changes had much more that were specific to them than the letters had. The letters are first, of course, all encompassed in those first couple items that we talked about. If you remember back in July of last year, we eliminated a good chunk of the NDC sortation and rating and entry discount associated with the NDC network back then for just about everything. What was left around was the marketing mail parcels. That's the marketing mail and nonprofit parcels that are falling into marketing mail. They still had NDC sorts and NDC rates associated with them, including SCF and the mixed NDC levels. That will now be eliminated to catch up with the rest of the mail. So that will impact both the sortations and the rates. NDC, ASF, and mixed NDC, mixed NDC will go to mixed working like everything else, like we mentioned before. But those NDC and ASF sorts that we're getting an NDC rate, those will be eliminated, which means that if you can get those down to a finer rate, you're going to be in better shape. Otherwise, they'll all drop down to the mixed level. Very similar to what we just talked about with the bound printed matter flats is that the bound printed matter parcels will be restructured as well. It's exactly the same in that what used to be a pound rate multiplied by the weight of the piece plus the piece price will now be just the pound rate of the piece. So if you're not above a certain weight, you will pay the rate associated with the entry point you're going to. And again, that makes things a little bit simpler to compute, but definitely is going to come with a few trade-offs in making sure that you're computing that or getting that correct rate out of your pieces if you're doing some of that work yourself. All right. And this is one of the major things that's not just being restructured, but completely added as a brand new thing. So heavy printed matter was another one of those bits that the post office was proposing to add back when they were proposing to eliminate bound printed matter. It is a brand new parcel product that will be in marketing mail. It'll be both for regular and the nonprofit rates. And really that product is meant to accommodate anything that exists across other products that is really marketing mail in nature, right? So if it's got a advertisement or some messaging about a business, right, those things can now fall into heavy printed matter rather than, for example, bound printed matter. A perfect example of this is catalogs, is that moving a catalog over from bound printed matter, that where it was those much heavier pieces were allowed, will now put it into a marketing mail and a little bit better price structure for you there. The caveat on that is that marketing mail, by definition, cannot contain fulfillment pieces, and the other piece that's called out by the post office is that you can't include books in marketing mail, right? So some things will have to stay either in bound printed matter where they are today, or move over to Parcel Select or Ground Advantage, for example. Those are all still options, and there's no requirement to move over to heavy printed matter, but it very likely will give you a better price if you compare. There's a few discounts and incentives that will come along with it being a marketing mail product. The SCF pallet discount and the direct container discount are two of those things. So if you can get enough to make an SCF pallet full of pieces, you'll get a discount on each of those pieces because the post office doesn't have to touch it as much as it moves through the network. The catalog incentive will be coming back, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And the promotions that can apply to heavy printed matter will be applied in the future. They're not going to apply directly in July. None of the 2026 promotions had that in their filings, so they wouldn't be able to, they're not going to try to retroactively apply the 2026 promotions. But I believe as they get into the 2027 promotions, that's where we'll start to see those discounts applied to heavy printed matter as well. Couple changes in the competitive side of things, and that is in the dimensional divisor and rounding rules that we have for a few of the products for Ground Advantage, Parcel Select, and Priority Mail. The formula for calculating a dimensional weight for a piece is you take the length, you take the width, and you take the height, and you multiply all those together, you get the cubic volume of the piece. If it exceeds 1,728 cubic inches, you divide it by 166, and that's what you use as your dimensional weight, right? Like in essence, this is a way for the post office to say your piece is very large, and it's going to cost more than just what the weight of the piece represents for us to ship it. And so that the change that they're bringing in with this cycle is that divisor, instead of being 166, is going to drop down to 139 to comply with what they believe is a more accurate representation of what it costs the piece to ship. There's an additional change in here, is that the rounding rules for those dimensions for the length, width, and height will now move to a round up formula rather than a round off formula. So today, if you're under the 0.5 cubic inch, or under 0.5 inches, you would round down to the nearest inch. And if you're above the 0.5, you would round up to the nearest inch. From now on, if you're 4.1 inches, you'll round up and everything in between. So if you want to see those rules, basically the post office has all those defined on how you do those roundings. And we're moving from that round off to that round up rule, which can be found in the DMM and 604 there.
Adam,
yeah,
Adam, quick camera check. Can you do me a favor and turn your video off and turn it back on? I think you froze.
Sure thing.
There we go. Yes.
Perfect. Great. So the other thing that I wanted to mention here is that this will obviously, by lowering that dimensional divisor, you're obviously going to get much smaller pieces than before that are qualifying for the dimensional rate, which means that those correspond to a higher rate in the rate cells. So make sure you're keeping track of that. If you've got some that were right on the cusp of maybe getting dimensional pricing before, they're probably going to fall over, and it might even get a little bit lower into some of the other less volume, but still just barely squeaking by kind of a thing. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to where those sides of those pieces are. All right, for cubic pieces, which is just another rating mechanism that's found in our competitive products, specifically for Ground Advantage and Priority Mail. The major thing that we're changing here is that we're moving from an 18-inch maximum single dimension up to 22 inches, which means that you can get larger pieces coming through here. And that just means that you'll obviously, sort those a little bit differently, but they will be allowed to go through the mail stream where they weren't before as a cubic piece. All right, so those are the changes that are coming in July. There's quite a few of them, but the ones that are coming as we move forward as part of the July changes that were filed with the PRC include some structural changes for our monthly pre-sort data. And if you're using the BCC pre-sort products, you get these things delivered to you every month. And in general, you probably don't have to think about them a lot, but I do want to make sure everybody's aware, especially if you're looking these things up. To the changes that are coming along, or if you are doing some of these some processing of these files yourself, just be aware that some of the structure here is changing. So as we mentioned, the NDC and the ADC sortations are all being eliminated. What we see as the list of labeling lists that are going away basically are supporting that, right? So the 04, the 09, 010, 601, 602, and 605 all supported that one of those sortations in a different way, whether it be the ADC or the NDC. The 15 was just one that wasn't used very often and is also being cleaned up. If you're using those today, be aware that those will start rolling out of circulation closer to the end of the year. You will no longer have data in those lists beginning November 1st. Similarly, but not quite in the same breath, is that label list 201, which supports the surface and air separations that we talked about before, will remain around, but it's not being used for any DMM sorts. That list is used on the back end by Postal Service, and it will be allowed to stick around as a reference. So the use case that the post office heard that is making them keep it is that some folks like to look at that and know how their mail will be processed in the facility where it'll be separated out to, and then understand how it's going to be shipped, whether by the surface or the air routes of the USPS. Additionally, CSAs are still built and broken out on label list 201. That doesn't mean that the label list 201 will be utilized on any post processes, but it is still used to build that CSA that you get from the post office. As a result, as well, the mail direction file that has ADC and NDC records for drop shipping, those records will be removed starting July 1st published and August effective. And that means every record in that file that has an A equals ADC or B equals NDC will no longer exist in that mail direction file. They will also be removed from the FAST mail direction lookup as well. So if you use FAST to look up facilities, you should be seeing those changes coming out a little later in the summer. I've also posted the link. The post office just changed this around earlier this week. I believe yesterday they published an update to it, and that link is on the slide here as well. So if keep a lookout there. It's not impossible that some of these things could be moved around a little bit more in the future. If lists are added or removed, that would cause them to update that timeline as well. All right, and then somewhat in a more fun topic is that we did get the 2027 promotions that were filed with the July set of proposals as well. So we have a couple new promotions coming, a change to one that exists today, and a couple that were removed. And I do have that calendar posted here as well. That's got dates and the percentages associated with each of these promotions on it as well. But to call out the new ones, we've got the direct mail discovery, which is geared towards getting new mailers into the mail stream, sending mail across the board. So the goal there is that an MSP can find a new mailer, someone who they're defining a new mailer, someone who has not mailed in the last 2 years or has never mailed. And if they can get them to do a mailing on the first 5,000 pieces that they send in any mailing during the promotional period, they will get a 40% off, which is the largest discount that the post office has ever offered on a promotion or an incentive. In addition, the MSP will get a 5% credit that can be utilized on future mailings. And basically that's just their goal is to really get as many people into the mailing as possible, or into the mail stream as possible with this mailing, right? So if you're finding someone who's been on the fence, this is a great way to get them out there, to get them mailing, get them to give it a try. A couple caveats on that 5,000 pieces. It is 5,000 pieces in a single mailing, and a maximum of 100,000 pieces over the course of the mailing time period for that mailer, right? So if you've got one mailer or one mail owner that is doing larger than 5,000 piece mailings, you can still use the promotion. It's just that those first 5,000 pieces are the only ones that will qualify for the 40%. And then once they hit that 100,000 piece mark, they've used up their quota for the promotion. The other new promotion is the impact messaging, which the post office is looking to encourage the use of mail in pieces that are sent out. And the definition of this is a little bit fuzzy. We're waiting for some finalization on what that's going to look like. But in general, they're looking to encourage either reply by mail as opposed to go to our website and sign up, or potentially just encouraging the benefits of sending your own mail in some way. We'll keep an eye on that one. As these are approved by the PRC, we'll get the guidebooks from the post office that give us a lot more details and a lot more guidance on what the content of the impact messaging in particular, and some of the extra rules that'll be around the direct mail discovery will be. And we're expecting those either at the end of this month or somewhere in the beginning of June. Additionally, the post office has broken apart the tactile, sensory, and interactive promotion into a tier 1 that's a standard level and the complex level of tier 2, and those will get a different discount depending which tier you're at. And in addition, I believe they are targeting the standard tier to not require a physical piece to be sent in, and the complex level will still require that, but we'll get a higher discount as well. Again, that is somewhat tentative as we're looking for the guidebooks to confirm those things, but that'll be an addition that you see as well with the coming 2027 promotions. Removed from 2026 into 2027 is the continuous contact promotion. The post office didn't see as much engagement as they were looking for there, and so it's getting retired, as well as the catalog insights promotion is getting retired. That one had the 10% for any catalog that was being sent through the promotion period.
Okay, we have a short poll for everybody just to make sure everyone's still awake. We got about 260 people in here with us. So we're going to launch a short poll. It is multiple choice, and it's just to engage everybody a little bit. So stand by. You should see it pop up on your screen.
Yeah, and as you're answering this, I guess it's worth noting that these are, I'm curious what folks are most either excited about, nervous about, combination of both, right? Like the addition of heavy printed matter is kind of a cool new thing that the post office is doing. There's some opportunity there, but then everything else has got some major changes coming along with it, right? So is there something that's keeping you up at night? Are any of these changes things that you're very excited for or overall ambivalent towards, but no, you need to keep an eye on it?
I'm going to keep it open for just about another 10 or 15 seconds. Looks like ADC's big one.
That's my big one as well. That's for sure the largest set of changes that we've seen, right? Like removing NDC last year was a huge monumental effort for BCC software, for the post office. These are things that have existed in the software and in the, of course, the mailing stream and the post office rules for decades. And so there's a lot of changes that we're working through, and they're large changes. They're very impactful in terms of the software at a bare minimum.
Thank you, everybody, for your feedback. That's great.
Thank you. All right, and then just a couple other things to call out. Again, these are the changes that I look at and say these are notable, but not quite as large in terms of the impact. But I'm very curious as we go through here, if folks look at these and say, I want more information on them, please let us know either in the chat or in the Q&A. So the mail.dat and mail.xml changes that we're getting with this cycle are not new versions. Well, we are getting a new minor version of mail.xml, but mail.dat has just got some errata going with it. There's 2 new fields in those that will be added to the functionality either of mailings in the future or on the launch of Postal One. The first of those is the eDoc Sender auto finalization configuration, and this is just to respond to some requests from folks in the industry that when you're doing seamless and you don't want the mailing to finalize immediately upon being uploaded, and you want to have a little bit of time to look at it, confirm that everything happened that you expected to have happen, did happen, and then you can it can be finalized at a later time period, but still within the same business day by and large, that you've got that option to do that. They put in an option in mail.dat to control that. So if you set that at a default, it'll be like 6 hour, I think it's 4, 6, 8, 10 hours that you can delay that auto finalization by. And that gives you a little bit of time to check up on your work. But there will be some extra rules associated with that and making sure that it finalizes before mailing date and things like that. So we'll keep an eye on what those rules are. They're not formally documented yet, but they are in the mail.dat specification. And then the other thing that's added that's notable but won't really come into play till next year is the approval code for the direct mail discovery. You do have to apply with the post office to verify that the mailer you are mailing for has not actually done a mailing in the last 2 years, and that will go through some application process, confirm with the post office that they don't have anything on record for that mailer, and then you'll get an approval code that can go into the mail.dat spec as well. Also changing are the Ground Advantage Cubic soft pack tiers. Right now, those sit at 10 tiers for soft pack and 10 tiers for the rectangular pieces. Those are being dropped only for soft pack, not for rectangular for Ground Advantage, down to 5 from that 10. That will line those soft packs up with their equivalents in priority mail. At first class mail, cards and flats. Excuse me, that's not supposed to be cards and flats. That's supposed to be cards and letters. We'll get that updated. But for cards and letters, when you're doing a co-mailing that includes both types of those pieces, the minimum can be met by the combination of the two. So if you have a 250-piece card mailing and a 250-piece letter mailing, you could use those to add up to that minimum. Or if you've got a couple thousand piece, I think that's the more common scenario, letter mailing and a few cards that are going along with it, you don't have to meet the minimum for the mailing for the cards separately than you already met it for the letters. The catalog incentive will be reinstated as well. Remember, the promotion for that is going away in 2027 for those catalog insights. But prior to getting that promotion, we had the catalog incentive. That's a pretty minor discount, but it is worth taking if you're doing catalogs. There's no approval period. If you have a catalog, you get I believe it's 0.001 cents on the piece. Additionally, they've added a hazmat handling and non-compliance fee for priority mail, parcel select, and Ground Advantage. And basically that is, the handling fee is an additional fee when you are sending hazmat material, and the non-compliance fees are trying to reduce the amount of mail going through the system that is not correctly labeled, whether it is labeled as with an old box that says it's hazmat and it's not actually hazmat, or it's with a box that's not labeled hazmat that does need to be labeled as hazardous material. And that's especially the use case that they want to catch, because if that piece has got hazardous material in it and the post office is not handling it correctly, that can cause a huge risk to those folks that are handling it, either in the error and those trucks to handle it correctly. I believe it's mostly to deal with the air scenario, though. All right. And then just one last piece here I know this is one of the more common questions that we get, and here's some general guidance and reminders for what BCC software needs to pick up. For our bulk mailer family of products, for our Architect family of products, and for our DatMail and Postal Web families of products, when can you install that software is the question, right? Because those products work on a mailing date basis, and they can be the release that supports the rate case can be used for previous rates as well. You can install those pieces of software whenever you want, when you get them. Again, be looking very closely at release emails and release notes as we get those things out, and that we'll be communicating the release dates as we get closer. But those can be installed immediately, and your mailing date in your for your mailing will pick up and use the correct rates based on that. For a mail manager family and our Presort family, those things are left a little bit distinct. And as soon as you get that piece of software that supports the rate case, that's the software that will for all future mailings will now use the new rates. So just be aware of that. And if you are looking to use that earlier than you're ready to do live mailings or production mailings with the rate case rates, you can install those things in a separate environment to get a little bit of look ahead there. And again, that's all just general guidance. Make sure you're always reading the release notes, paying attention to notifications and the release emails that we do send out to make sure that if there's any additional guidance or additional specific requirements for any of those rate case releases, that you're paying attention to those as well. Right. I believe that's the end of our content for this. So Brandon, do we have any Q&A that we need to do live here, or has everything gotten answered on the fly?
We do. I just want to do one more housekeeping reminder for everybody. If you joined after 5 minutes in, we did record this session. We are going to be sending it out to everybody. And we'll also have chaptered videos to send out to everybody who has registered and attended the webinar so that you guys have record of this, okay? There were some questions. I'll go in reverse order. Do you believe that all ADC mail can be transferred to 3D and that a very limited amount will fall to mixed? The ADC level would have been 3D qualified to begin with if the densities were present. Right.
So the ADC mail and we're talking sortation levels now, right? Because the 3-digit rate is the difference. So if by and large, the ADC label lists were already synced up with the SCF label lists. So if it was getting an ADC rate before, it will now go to, and getting ADC sortation, it'll be going to the SCF sortation, which can get the 3-digit rate, right? There will be some exceptions to that. And anytime you change a sort, things drop down and things move up in ways that are hard to predict until you actually do a little bit of testing on your side. But by and large, those pieces should be corresponding to getting an SCF sortation and therefore a 3-digit rate.
Okay. The current Notice 123 table for marketing mail commercial letters automation does not include the 3-digit rate level, but I thought your slide with example restructuring shows both 3-digit and AADC for current. Can you explain this?
Yeah, it's possible that what we're looking at are just different things. I will double check the heading on there and make sure I grab the correct rate chart and make sure that it did fit into it, right? So if it's possible, it's not impossible, right? Like I looked for one that was generally a good illustrator, but if it ends up that I've got the wrong one, and it depends on which Notice 123 you're looking at. If you're looking at the new rate charts, some of those could have moved around. Those shouldn't have for 3-digit rates. I'll just double check those headings, but off the top of my head, I can't say for sure until I pull it up. So,
will the thickness maximum for marketing mail flats be increased as well?
Yes. So Oh, no, it will not. I'm sorry. So the weight is the only thing that is being increased there. Again, I'll double check that and we'll put it in. I think, Brandon, we're planning on doing some follow-up documents here. We'll look into what doing a Q&A looks like, and I'll double check that, but I believe it's just on the weight.
Okay. Yes, and just a reminder to those who are still here, we're going to be sending out a detailed digital rate case guide document similar to what we did last year. So there'll be a lot of detailed information in there. Question, how will Presort handle marketing flats from 20 to 24 ounces? How would we process the non-carrier route pieces?
Yeah, so the restriction that you've got on the only carrier route flats can be 24 ounces is that if they do not qualify for a carrier rate better rate, they cannot be shipped at the same rate they cannot be shipped, right? So you've got to beat the carrier route sortation level. And if they're 22 ounces, for example, and they cannot go at carrier rate, they have to drop out of the mailing because they cannot be shipped at a lower rate because they have to be processed on a machine that only handles up to 20 ounces.
Question regarding the Linux Presort software update. When will it be made available? Do we have an idea?
We are shooting for across the board. Our targets are the same as they are every year, and that will depend on the family of products. Given the scope and size of this rate case, we're trying to mitigate as much as we can in terms of the major changes, but we don't have solid release dates yet. We will be communicating those as we get closer. But the major issue right now in terms of shooting for an actual target date is that we're still in active development. So a lot of things can happen. Post office can also change a lot of things between now and then. So we'll do our best to get them as close to our normal release dates as possible. And that depends on which family of products. For pre-sort, we usually shoot for mid the month prior. I do think it will be at least a bit later than that, but we will keep everybody updated depending on how that development effort goes.
Question, do we know the intent behind making bound printed matter over 3 pounds pre-sorted more competitive than heavy printed matter?
The intent is purely conjecture from my perspective, right? Their attempt to eliminate bound printed matter across the board and then being limited in what they're able to actually eliminate there means that they're just trying to move mail out of bound printed matter either way, right? It's possible that they don't want bound printed matter to to stick around long term, and moving that volume out will make that more easy to eliminate in the future. It's possible that just reducing the amount of volume in bound printed matter will give them a better indication on some internal factors that allow them to manage their operations correctly. All of that's conjecture on my part, though, and none of that is confirmed on future plans with the post office.
Christiana, I see your hand raised. Can you put your question in chat in the Q&A or in the chat, please, and we'll get to your question. I heard rumor. There's a question. I heard rumors about a .dat editor being added to the IMSB tool. Did this come up at NPF at all?
I did not hear that rumor myself, so I don't recall having any conversations about it at NPF either. So I can neither confirm.
Okay. Will there be any CIN code changes or new codes specific to FCM letters with adding the 3-digit sorting?
Gotcha. Yeah. So the full list, and we'll put this in our post documentations as well, but the full list of SIN changes are published in the FRN from the USPS to the PRC. I don't know off the top of my head what those are for the FCM letters segment, but those are published out there, and there are a number of SIN changes happening there. By and large, if a SIN existed for a level, it won't be changing. If a new level is available, a full new level is available, it'll get a new SIN code, but there are instances where ADC SINs got reused for the new SCF SINs. So we can put that link in the chat, or not in the chat, in the post documents.
Little question regarding Mail Manager software. Did like a toggle for sorts mailing before and after rate case takes effect? There's quite a few supportive hand claps for that particular one. Do we have is that in the roadmap? Do we know?
It's not specifically in the roadmap right now, but it is definitely something we will add to it, and I think Kendra and Rosine will take that down for us, and we'll put it on our backlog.
Great. Question, is there any grace period for a pre-sort that was run prior to July 12th, but will not be mailed until after the new rate increase? In the past, the USPS has allowed the sortation, but the customer had to pay the higher rate. Will that be true for this one as well?
Yeah, and it's going to depend on the scenario, right? Like there's always the plant verified drop shipment notice that they put out is if you pay for everything prior to the rate case implementation date, then you're paying the old rates. And if you are not paying for everything prior to that date, you're paying the new rates. That depends for that specific scenario. It's not been announced yet, but usually that's the rough set of guidelines that they offer. From what I understand with the post office in terms of mapping old mail.dats to new rates, they will not be doing that in Postal One this time. And that is a thing that we are keeping an eye on as well. There may be exceptions that are granted, but from what I understand, through just submitting a mail.dat or XML through Postal One, it will need to have the new sortation in it, and it will begin to error on old rates that are now retired, right? So if it's got an ADC rate in it, it very likely will cause an error. But that is a thing that we're keeping an eye on as well, because that is a thing that can definitely change, especially depending on what the industry, what the MSPs and what mailers are able to comply with. It may be easier for them to put in some kind of translation effort than to manually process anything that needs an exception in that way. So right now, that is, I believe, is the plan for the post office. But again, I'm speaking just based on conversation as opposed to anything that's documented there.
There's a question regarding how will low volume tubs mixed with sacks when doing forced saturation with the new 50-piece minimum, how will that work?
That is a great question, and I don't have an answer. We will have to take that one back.
Yeah, we're logging all of these as to all attendees, so we'll make sure to have directed answers in the piece and also in the June 18th webinar that's going to be coming up in about a month. Christiana, her question is here. Is there an estimated time frame for the compliance or grace period provided for the removal of bundling and marketing flats, similar to what they did with the NDC level removal?
Yeah, I don't believe there's any grace period that's being currently planned for. Again, that can change, and we're keeping an eye on it.
Question, SCF sort getting the 3-digit rate for marketing mail flats, does that apply to marketing mail parcels as well?
It will depend on the parcel category that we're looking at. If it had an ADC sort or it had an SCF sort in it, so if it had an ADC in it, I'll have to go back and just confirm. I'm trying to remember which ones had those, and if any, I don't think any of them are being transferred over for parcels. There were a couple that have the SCF sort in them, and those would be getting the 3-digit rate as well. Again, I'll confirm that, but that is my memory off the top of my head.
There's one last question. So if anybody has questions before the end, please submit them because we're going to be wrapping up here in a little while. Will there be a new piece rate in the pre-sort software to match the FCM 3-digit non-automation machinable letters?
New rate. I will have to take that back. I'm not sure if I understand if there's any additional context you can give to what do you mean by new rate. If it had a 3-digit rate already that was present, it will continue to have a 3-digit rate, but I don't believe any 3-digit rates were added to any categories that didn't have them. So I'll just confirm the technical pieces there, but I believe that's what we're looking at.
Okay. Last call for any remaining questions or follow-up questions from anybody. Just as one final reminder, we're going to be sending out print like a digital magazine style piece to cover all of the subject matter that was covered in this webinar as it develops over the next few weeks. And then that will go out just ahead of the June 18th webinar. So please sign up for that webinar. We do have everybody who registered and attended to this webinar, so we'll be sending you all an email with that piece once it's finished. It probably will not be sent out for at least a couple of weeks. And we will get this out to everybody as well. Just to confirm, no books for heavy printed matter refers to novels, correct?
I don't have specifics on what they're calling out for books, the language that they're saying, or what qualifies for a book. I will look and see if there's any formal definition of a book, either in the DMM or any guidance, but the no books for heavy printed matter comes from the release overview, I believe, and we'll put a link for that in our documents as well, so you can read it yourself. But by and large, a book, any fulfillment material should not be there. Bound matter can be in heavy printed matter, right? It's not just anything that's got a staple in it and multiple pages, but it is, but books, yeah, novels or potentially even textbooks or things of that nature could qualify. I'll have to look and see what the formal definition is, though.
Great. Okay, I think that, oh, hold on, one just popped in. Are there any changes with EDDM mailers?
There will be changes to the prices for sure for the EDDM pieces, but by and large, the sortation and preparation for those should be staying the same.
We are seamless, and you mentioned that there might be a way to have more time to look over a job before it's finalized. Can you tell me more about this?
Yeah, so the field that was added to the mail.dat spec and the mail.xml spec will allow a a user to put in a amount that is targeted to be delayed for their auto finalization. So that means if you put in a 6-hour delay from the point where that mail.dat is fully uploaded and it's gone through all of its confirmations and validations, you will be able to have that time to look at it before it's finalized and the payment comes out. And that will be supported in the releases of the software by and large.
Excellent. Okay, I think that covers all the questions that were submitted. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us. Thank you so much to Adam, Kendra, and Rosine for being such great moderators and for monitoring the chat and answering questions as they can. We will be having a follow-up rate case radar on Thursday, June 18th, roughly 1 month from today. So please join us then. Otherwise, everyone, please have a fantastic holiday weekend. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us, okay? Appreciate your time, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brandon.